Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have not been in the headlines so much these days, but many severely injured veterans are still battling to live productive lives.
Here in Omaha, there is a concerted effort to help. Mike McKnight has an exclusive look at plans to not only make wounded warriors comfortable, but also their neighbors, as 6 on Your Side investigates.
That's the building.
Overgrown former soccer fields surrounded by trees are where a mission moves from vision to reality.
We're going to build 30 units for combat wounded veterans that are being taken care of by their parents, and their parents are aging out.
The facility will care for about 30 wounded veterans moved here from across the country.
Generally speaking, 2 categories: TBI, traumatic brain injury, and multiple amputations.
The retired Marine colonel says 85% of the $10 million cost has already been raised. The Dunham House will help wounded warriors in their recovery and adjusting to life back home, and it's named after a fallen hero who gave his life. At a checkpoint in Iraq in 2004, 23-year-old Jason Dunham died after jumping on a grenade and was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously.
This facility is honoring a young American Marine who sacrificed his life to save his fellow Marines.
And 100 others killed during Operation Enduring Freedom will also be honored at the facility with granite blocks for a wall or walkway.
We are healing the wounds medicine cannot.
More markers with names of military personnel who lost their lives in combat since 9/11 will be added as the design for the memorial is developed.
They need to be seen by the American public coming into the facility. We want them to be displayed. That's the whole reason behind the mission.
But less noticeable will be the care facility itself, tucked behind trees and across the field from homes near the Omaha Country Club.
There shouldn't be any reason for any concern. We have a lot of buffer between us. We're trying to save as many trees as possible.
Robert Reddick lives on the other side of the buffer.
Yeah, what you showed me looks really good. I'm glad to see something productive with the field that's not too onerous for the rest of the neighborhood. You know, it's not high-density housing.
Promoters of the Dunham House Combat Wounded Care residents say dirt work could start yet this fall, but honor blocks for the fallen are already here.
There's no such thing as a good war.
On Your Side near 60th and State, Mike McKnight, 6 News.
If all goes as planned, the care facility should be welcoming combat wounded veterans by 2026. And neighbors will get more information and be able to ask questions about the project at a community meeting scheduled for the Omaha Country Club on Thursday evening.